Right, okay.
Good evening, welcome to this Estates Committee meeting. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have apologies from
Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray. Are we happy to accept them? The next item is declarations of interest. Any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other interest to declare at this time. Okay. But if anything comes up, let us know. Representations from interested parties? No. The minutes of the previous meeting have been sent to everyone. Are we happy with them? If so, I'll sign.
Seems like a long time ago.
That's up to you.
It does. It's 2 months.
You need to say something.
We can do. Go for
You
it.
want me to propose?
Yeah,
We're short of the right people.
Is Val seconding?
Yeah.
okay.
Whichever way.
Please have the.
Sorry, what do you want?
Thank you. Yep. Sign now. Next item is reports, and it's to receive reports. Now, we've received the Properties and Open Spaces report, the update report included with that, and the 3 to 5 year maintenance action plan, which also I think included in the same. So we've got that, which is good. So we'll move on to the main stuff. So Fletton House, is the first one. So discuss quotes received for external blinds to some of the south-facing windows at Fletton House. And so next steps, recommendations for council. Now,
So this was something that came out of a suggestion from Councillor Jones last summer, that whether we should equip ourselves for hot summers, etc., etc. And 1 or 2 conversations took place about the use, the impact, benefit of external blinds. And we've got these quotes from
Samson?
Samson, Samson, who are a local company. They've done some work a long time ago at my mother's house, and it's very good. And they came and looked at 2 south-facing rooms on the top floor that don't have
For my office.
cross breeds. So the office here,
And
the bar.
kitchen, I think, or I can't remember where the other one was.
What the room's called. No, they haven't gone on to that, so.
It's going to be D&D.
Because that gets very sunny.
Yeah. The idea being that see if they work, see if we like them, see if they're good. And while there are downstairs rooms that face south, it's easily within our remit to put something a bit temporary up. But on the top floor you can't. And then if we like them, we could always do windows like this on the farm room that have.
Yeah,
So
I would agree with that.
that's the background. It's sort of preparing ourselves for longer, hotter summers. And it's the old Australian idea of you stop the light coming in the window, it doesn't heat the room up, so it protects you from having to cool it down.
Yeah, they're quite expensive though, I don't know if you saw.
I have.
And also, I just wonder whether we'll be in the dark. So we're sitting in a darkened room trying to work.
The experience, and I've had a look at the blind quote, we've got sort of some pictures of it, but I'm not quite sure which one it is.
yeah, that's what yeah.
But are they fabric or metal?
They're on the outside, I think they're not fabric, I think they're pretty,
Yeah, because they have to be resistant.
Yeah.
To all
So
kinds
the
of
only reason I asked, no, the fabric is made from fabric. So it's a shade cloth that comes down on the outside. So it's
Yeah, I was just wondering whether, like the blinds that are in there at the moment,
Yeah.
obviously they aren't a blackout blind or anything. Would it be better to look at that rather than putting something on the outside?
Candidly, anything that doesn't work as well. Because the inside, the gap between the window and the blind still gets hot.
Yeah.
So the room still gets hot.
It's just a lot of money for sort of maybe a month in a year, because obviously when it's not too hot, you have the windows open. And what we do is we open the windows here, and so you'll get a through breeze. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a lot more money than I anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, they last. They're strong.
Well, they're talking about a 5-year guarantee, aren't they, for the project, product, sorry. And the blinds are fabric, but they're clearly what they call high quality water resistant fabric. So not something you probably have in your bathroom at home. As MSS are on the outside. They're not cheap. They're between 13k and 15.5k.
What is our budget for flat
Well,
house
it's
this
going
year?
to pretty much blow the budget.
Right, okay.
You've got 15k or left.
So that would work.
I think they're too expensive. I don't mind the idea, but I think they are
Too pricey.
too expensive.
Fair enough.
The idea is good. What's the advantage of having them? And is it worth 15k? What, 13 to 15k? Is it going to save energy costs or?
Probably we don't have an air conditioner.
No, so if it's keeping heat out, I don't think it wouldn't have an impact.
So it's going to stop the rooms getting too hot.
Yeah,
Is an alternative as you open the window?
yeah, and I mean,
Sorry to be.
last year wasn't as bad as the year before,
When it was 30 or 40 outside.
but it was only literally for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. Because the minute you can get a breeze, and if you open the windows, you know, you can even open the windows in here. There's a window along, and you can open the server room and the window where the photocopier is, and you will get a breeze come through. And we've got fans as well.
Sorry about that.
There's the odd time when we've had to have fans on. but
Yeah,
Not that sort of 4 or 5, would you say, in the summer?
Well, I was going to say, following up from that point, given that, well, with global warming, we might be using them more and more, but, you know, judging from the last 2 years, we're probably using them, maybe maximum 3 to 4 weeks of the year. And given the cost, I'm wondering whether or not an energy efficient kind of air, you know, you can get these Dyson machines these days now, which are.
Yeah, I think the idea was to avoid using energy, but fair enough. Is it worth going back to them and saying, is there a cheaper option? Because they certainly had cheaper options on their website.
can do. My only concern is if you're reducing the light, that has an impact on the room. So then if you've got to put a light, because the room's a bit darker, sort of almost defeats the object. But yeah, I can say to Lisa, check up, you know, see if they've got other options. I mean, that's why I thought if we just went with something better on the inside, because those blinds, well, they're very flimsy. If we had a slightly better quality one, you could probably get blinds where they've camouflage.
Internal blinds.
Yeah, so when you like replace internal, you might be able to do that more cheaply.
I mean, the other stupid thing is to get a blind like that and just chuck it out the window, shut the window. We've done that one of ours. And then it does the same effect, but it's significantly cheaper.
Can I suggest that we keep a record this summer?
Of the number of hot days.
Yes, what the number of times we do have to. It's easier to think of, oh yes, we have those hot days, but there weren't actually that many.
I mean, the one benefit, I mean, that would obviously affect staff upstairs, but if you're thinking of a cool space for people to come in, the benefit of downstairs is it doesn't seem to get as hot.
No, exactly.
Um,
The only reason to do this upstairs was it's harder for us to do it upstairs. But we could easily do our own downstairs, even with some of those DIY awning ones. That needs to fit. So,
Okay, so do we need to vote on that, or?
do you want me to just put, consider, looking for a cheaper option? Yeah.
A cheaper option and also monitoring the hot day. I think it's probably kicking it into next year once we've got more
Yeah.
information about the options,
Yeah, I think so.
including internal blinds as well, which might do the job just as well,
Yeah.
but at a much lower price.
Okay, good, right, the next item to approve budget to purchase an owl. Let's leave that. Microphone and tripod for recording and live streaming council meetings.
Yeah, well, this is what we've been using recently, isn't it? But it's on loan from Jerry or Jerry
Jerry
the Maserati Club or whatever.
The Maserati Club.
Obviously, I don't know because I don't watch the videos when we're here, but my understanding is it does improve the quality for anybody that's watching.
you can see this talking.
And it's good, I mean, and I think last Tuesday, having members of the public, I mean, obviously if they're okay with being on the screen,
Yeah.
but you could see them, you could see when they were presenting, you could see when the council was asking the question, but then you could also still see everybody as well.
And given the number of times it's used, because it can be used for all meetings, not just for council meetings. And for that matter, the staff can use it internally if they have,
Yeah.
a Zoom conference or whatever. I think 1,300, it's going to be in use quite a lot. And it's clearly, assuming we're not spending 15k on blinds, it's very much within the budget.
We've got a furniture and equipment budget of
Yeah.
4,000, which is largely untapped. 723.
Okay.
So, with the extra microphone and the tripod stand on,
Yeah.
it seems like a no-brainer. We could also use it elsewhere, but and on town meetings maybe.
Yeah.
I'm happy to propose it.
Second, okay.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, all in favour? How's it going? That's good. Okay, next, workshop, property storage facilities. To receive solicitor email, status officer update and agree on next steps. So, judging by the email, we have until the end of March this year. And there are a few sort of stipulations, but I think a few of them, they're in the process of being ticked off, is that
Yeah. Mhm.
right?
It's the impression in the report.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Is there anything that is worrying?
Not really. I mean, having read through the agreement, it does say in there, they've got I think it even stipulates the colour that we've got to
Yeah.
decorate it with. But I think it would be worth having a meeting with Peter down there, arranging that, and just having a wander through. And if there is a councillor free to come along to that, that would be quite good as well.
The time is right, yeah. Sounds good.
And presumably in relation to the solicitor's note, where we have to remove all of your fixtures, we'll presumably be doing that anyway.
Yeah, we're doing that, yeah.
Yeah,
They've got a
yeah.
skip at the moment that they're
Yeah.
filling, getting rid of there's a lot of stuff in there that we don't need to be bringing up to here.
Remove any alterations.
Yeah, what alterations?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know,
Not the toilet.
I don't think we've done any major alterations in there,
That might just,
from what
Yeah.
I've seen.
It's generic.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we fixed the sink, we'll have to unfix it.
Yeah,
Here's your sledgehammer.
I mean, the roller shutter at the end has never worked by all accounts, and it has to be lifted up and down.
Yeah.
So I will make a point of saying that that was like
I
that.
reported that in the past.
Mm.
It's at the minutes and something.
Yeah, it has been reported, yeah.
In regards to agree on next steps, what are the next steps we need to agree on?
I think, at least the next item is part of the next step.
Okay.
I think it's just a case of clearing out, but then also sorting out what container we're going to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, just going to raise that. It says in the report, maintenance decide which container and gate configuration options best suit the area and their needs. And EO to order once decision is finalised. Presumably the council's involved in those decisions. That's important.
Well, it'll be a council approval, but what the map was produced of the area.
So have we seen that?
Have you not seen that?
No.
I think so.
We've not seen
Okay.
anything.
Right. Nobby's got it at the moment, and he's just sort of working out best configuration. I would imagine maybe for your next meeting we'll have something, but it might be that I'll speak to Lisa, because if we've got a 6-week,
And given that we've got to move in.
End of March.
In March.
yeah, I
it's,
know, I just
the
thought, just
clock is
thinking
ticking.
that.
The clock is-
I'll find out exactly where we are with that, because it may be that we need to order them.
Because it might take a while to get the container, whatever,
Yeah,
and the gates in place.
It was-
What we don't want to do is end up, caught between two stools.
It looks like the March date, we've written that in, so if we told them that. or-
well, they said that we needed to give 3 months notice. I mean, if there is a situation where obviously they've got somebody lined up to move in 1st of April, then we've got no choice, but then maybe a little bit of leeway for an extra month, I don't know. But I'll speak to Lisa and see where we are with that, because that does need to be,
Action.
sooner rather than later, and potentially would have to go to full council anyway.
Yeah,
So-
so if it goes full council, that's certainly going to leave 6 weeks to rule that, get it in place, which seems.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so the next item is request approval to dispose, sell any items containing the workshop which are no longer needed by maintenance in preparation for the workshop move. Sell any items.
Well, what it is, there's some there's like scrap metal, there's old broken lawnmowers in there. And rather than, when they get to the point where, we're going to either, if we could get a bit of money for it, for scrap,
Yeah.
are you okay for Nobby to do that, rather than it has to come back to a meeting and you say, yes, you can get rid of that? A lot of it is stuff that is.
I don't think we're in a position to decide. I mean, Nobby knows.
Yeah.
what he
I mean,
wants
it
and-
won't be anything that we currently use. It won't be anything.
I suppose the only thing I wrote down was, should we have like a list of what we've sold on and how much?
Yeah. Well, what it will happen is
Yeah, great.
the asset register will have all of the old, major equipment. I mean, it won't have old little bits of metal on it, but it'll have, if it's a couple of the old lawnmowers, it'll have that, and obviously that'll be.
And if we sell it for scrap metal, there will be an itemised receipt coming the other way, won't there? Because they have to itemise
Yeah.
weight and quantity of everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be some.
It's all
Yeah.
there's a really nice place in. Yeah,
You've-
I've been to a couple of times.
you can put
It's
it
really
in-
clean. They have two very nice
What have you been there for?
to give them some scrap metal,
Okay.
and they're run by two very nice, relatively young women. It's not what you're.
Oh, really?
It's
Oh,
extremely
okay. Oh,
tiny.
okay.
It's brilliant. I can't remember what it's called, but
That's clearer and clearer.
yeah, the email.
You can put it in the local auction, the gold one, it's called.
Goldsmiths,
Goldsmith.
Yeah,
That's very close.
next door to us.
That's cool.
it's amazing what they sell there.
So do we need to vote on that? 'Cause we're, or we're
Well, you
saying
could
yes?
just say if you agree. I mean, obviously, it's going to be done in conjunction with me,
The more
Lisa.
the better.
Yeah, and if there's anything that I think is, you know, quite a big item, but they can say to me, "Oh, we really don't need it," then it might be that I'll come back to a meeting and say, "Looks like, you know, we can get rid of this." So I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. So, the hub, there's nothing to report. QBH. We have, so from the actions last time was the roof survey, in spring. External decoration approved. This month, nothing but curtain cords. Be replacing soon-ish. Yes.
It's a general thing in relation to QVH and this work. I need to explain the context. There's a group called the Culture Club,
Okay.
It's now becoming officially known as the
which is a very ad hoc group which meets at Andrew Wood's house about every 3 months. And is a collection of most of the cultural organisations in and around town, like the Lit Fest and Gilman Sullivan and what have you. Anyway, sorry, the relevance of this is that one of the commonalities is that they all tend to use QVH to a greater or lesser degree. And the Cultural Club took it upon themselves to do a survey of what work they would recommend being done in the Cultural Club. And that report has been produced, and I've seen a copy of it. It's very extensive. My question is, you've got this group over here that seems to be working completely independently of us, who actually have the real responsibility. So my question is really to the chair and to Emma, the clerk. Do I point this in someone's direction, or what?
It's going to be presented at a meeting.
Yes, I mean, it would be a QVH meeting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Not to the QVH. But
Trust-
QVH, this is where I'm a bit confused.
Trustees,
Well, the trustees tend not to get embroiled in things like when we paint the door. That's kind of like estates.
Well, they'll, yeah, I mean, but it depends on if it's major decisions about major changes, then it should really,
I've only had a quick look at it, and I don't think, to be honest, I don't think there's much on there that we're not aware of. And a lot of it is improving the, shall we say, quality of the building by painting, by doing things that are already on this list. So curtains, for example, those things are on the list. There were some things on the list to do with flooring. So I'm really just asking people's views on where I should send this list, or where ask this list to be sent. I didn't commission it. It's
Can I suggest that you present it to this group,
yeah.
and then we push it up to full council with some recommendations?
well,
Otherwise,
QVH meeting.
Yeah, QVH, but otherwise we'll
Should
end
we
up with a long
QVH?
conversation, and it'll take all of a half hour at QVH, and we won't decide anything. So
Yeah,
if we-
it may be that I probably should ask somebody from the cultural club to present
Absolutely,
it,
yeah.
you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of between two stools.
That would be a helpful culling process before it goes up to QVH.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can go back and then recommend that they present it to a
Next,
It's quite a voluminous document. They've taken loads of pictures and.
So what group did you say it was? The
Culture Club.
Culture Club?
Culture Club.
So it's like Creative Amble as was and something else, and they're all it's coordinating things. It's exciting.
Well, Creative Arm are kind of coordinating the cultural club, but it's having benefit already. It's trying. One of the reasons for doing it was trying to make sure that we're not trying to put on events at the same time, and that we actually swap
Okay.
knowledge and ideas.
Yeah. Now, John is doing some work on.
Well, John's doing, this is Councillor Wade, is doing work, I believe, looking to see how we can market it better. Is that the right phrase?
Yeah, I think so, and also probably just try and drum up, a little bit more business.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering whether, I don't know whether it's worth running it past him as well.
I would more than happily do that at the same time, and this is why I'm anxious about it. That we've got different hands doing different things, and we all need to be on board.
If we table it here,
Yeah.
then it's in the public domain, it's tabled, we can talk about it and then make recommendations.
And I think sending that positive message back to the people that have drawn this up, I think would be good, that we are then wanting to take it seriously.
Absolutely. Good idea.
Yeah, very good.
Can I
Yes.
raise a similar, different point, but the same point? Recently in a meeting somewhere, someone said one of the problems with QVH is the lack of blackout lines. You suddenly think, we're talking about blackout lines here, we're talking about replacing curtains. Is there an opportunity to look at lines in the QVH that actually make it a space that the films and stuff is done? I don't know where one looks to.
I think there probably is blackout lines. I think blackout lines is one of their requests, and that's so Docs Plus, for example, are one of the people in the cultural club, and I think they're particularly concerned about because the curtains keep on breaking, whether or not they should really be replaced by blackout lines. It's particularly if you're giving performances there when it's not getting dark at 6 o'clock.
And in the sun, So
Okay.
it's something we should investigate.
Yeah, I'm sure that's on the list. As I say, I haven't read through it.
Okay, so Max, if you go back and say, come along to the next estates meeting and give us your
Yeah, because I don't think there isn't a
thoughts.
QVH meeting in February. The next one I think is March, so it'll sort of
Yeah.
tie in with that.
Okay, I will do that. I'll even write something down to remind myself.
We can watch the video.
Courthouse. Discuss renewal tenancy for Annex Office 4, Anglian Cloud Services, and decide next steps. Now, from what I can tell from the report, this is a company or person who lives in London, works in London, and they don't actually use this office as essentially a server farm, if you like. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, so it's not their place of work.
Yeah.
It's almost basically where they store, where they've got their servers and
Yeah.
things.
Just on that question, do they have electricity as part of their rent, or do we?
Yes, they do, but they've also, I think they've installed certain things as well.
It says on the report here that they had a separate fuse board installed due to outage, but I don't think they've got a meter.
No,
supply.
I don't think they've got a meter supply, no.
So we're subsidising.
Yeah,
So,
very good point. Could we then potentially go back to them and say, as a condition of your continued lease, if we want to do that, we could have a meter installed on their specific office? Is that something we can do? I don't know.
Yeah, you can do that. Or, I mean, the problem is there's a lot of heat that gets generated, and we've had complaints from the other tenants about the noise, the heat.
It's very high.
Yeah, and it's when they they came, it was like they were going to be working from there. That was the impression that we got. We haven't been given that. You know, there's nobody ever is there. They put a desk in there and said if somebody comes occasionally, but
Max?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is probably similar to what Emma's just saying, and that is that in terms of, you know, why we have these premises, you know, they're there to promote Arundel local businesses, particularly to help run and, you know, start up businesses. And I don't think they tick that box.
No.
Regardless of all of the other issues to do with noise, electricity and whatever, I'm just not entirely sure they're the kind of tenant that we should wish to attract.
I agree totally.
Okay.
I think it's sad that they came.
yeah, but I mean, it was sold, and I mean, obviously Lisa brought it to the Estates Committee. It was as if it was going to be their office.
Sort of a start-up business.
Yeah, but it's not an office because you couldn't. I mean, I've been in there. You couldn't work in there.
And there are clearly other people that would want that kind of accommodation. You know, it's not as though, you know, we've got a bigger supply than we can demand anyway.
Yeah.
We've got more demand than we can supply anyway. So I just don't see it as a priority. I don't think it's in the interests of
Okay.
what we're trying to achieve with the units.
Yeah.
What kind of tenancy do they have?
It says it runs out in May.
There's a
That's
break.
like-
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, this is why it's on because it's up
May's
for
an ideal
renewal.
time to run out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
Let's not renew it.
Suppose ask a devil's advocate question. There is a risk if we throw them out and we don't get any tenants for a few months, we lose income. That might be worth doing.
But we might lose other tenants.
I don't push it that. We had people looking for offices we've had to turn away in the last 6 months?
Somebody was turned away. Well, somebody did inquire, but the only office that we've got available, which I think is the next, is the damp one, and so they've gone elsewhere.
So based on the last 12 months, there's a reasonable chance we can find it.
Yeah, I think so. It is a
Yeah.
nice
So
office.
it's worth it.
I think even just if one email, you know, whatever it's called, Arnold Business Association, you know, maybe association members would jump at it.
Okay, shall we have a vote then? So those, so I guess the question is, those in favour? No.
You've got a proposer. He wants to propose that you don't.
Okay, so I will propose that we do not renew
The lease.
the lease.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yeah,
That sounds simple, but my understanding is that people normally would expect to be able to continue their lease if there hasn't been a problem. So have they been made aware of that?
Yes, yeah, and they've had to put. They have put in, like things. They put fans in various things, but it's still, it's still.
But it's not
Not
solved
great.
the problem. And who pays for their electricity use?
We do.
We do.
We do, because that's another
The
matter.
residents
itself.
will do.
I mean, I
Got
think
a lot of
it's
electrical stuff
possibly-
going on in there.
Worth a conversation with our solicitors, just to say that this is what we're thinking, and just to see what they advise. But I'm sure, if you cannot renew somebody's lease.
Yeah, if it's coming up in May, there'll be a 2-month
Mm.
briefing with us, so February, if we have a definite answer to that, that would give us March and April, there's still time.
Mhm.
So do we just say at the moment that the mood of the meeting is we don't renew, check
Yeah.
with the solicitors? Okay,
yeah, good. Well done.
cool.
Okay. So the next item, discuss water ingress in Office B, likely linked to.
Sorry, if we just jumped over Office 2A.
No, it's the same, discuss water ingress in Office 8, likely linked to Office 2A damp issues, see report and agree next steps. That's the,
Yeah, I see, sorry.
that's all right.
So the suggestion is it's the same issue.
Connected. Yeah.
So we had the photos from the drone survey.
Yes.
Yeah, so it seems as if there's some lead missing that can be coming all the way through because there's damp above it as well. So
The,
Yeah. Not sure whether it's there. So that's the,
I believe you.
so that's the clever aerial survey, can you see that? And then obviously that's the roof down below, sort of chap area. I think the suggestion is that lead there is slipped at that end. And it's a gutter full or something, I'm not sure. And the argument is that lines up with that chimney breast there, which is where the water appears to be coming in. And it's 2A below
yeah,
A as well. So whether it's the same issue.
So what, we presumably need to get quotes to get it fixed, no? Sorry, what decision do we need to make?
well, if lead is missing and there's water coming in, then we've just got to get on with it and
Yeah.
sort it.
okay.
Is that something Nobby and Tony can do? Or-
No, they, I don't think they can't go up that high, so we'd have to get somebody else in.
So do we need to get a quote to approve or the next full council?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go to normal person who does this and just see what it entails, because it could be that there could be other things, like it could be the guttering's got to be replaced, so it could turn into a much more expensive
Yeah.
job.
Joint courthouse roof.
Yeah.
So yeah, so all we can do at the moment is agree to.
Agree that we go and
Yeah.
agree to investigate.
Yeah, okay.
Is that just one other thing?
Yeah.
Yesterday, after all that heavy wind, where Charles Wally are, that you're in used to be the old registry office, part of the plaster came down between the beams.
Inside.
Inside. So Nobby had to go because it did land on some of their computer equipment. Quite a bit of damage, not to their equipment, but there's a big hole now in the ceiling. Well, the plaster's off, so you can see all the lath and plaster underneath it. All we can think of is that wind has got under the tile and I think that's happening today. Somebody's going in to just have a look, see how bad it is, and also check all of the other plaster, because it may be that the rest of it is a bit loose. So that's going to need to be fixed.
Fair enough.
Okay. Car parks. Discuss car park management recommendation paper for the Drillhall car park, Benford Road, and decide next steps.
That's
Over to you.
So last meeting, someone said, maybe it was me, we need to do something. So I went back to the company we spoke to originally, Flash Park. And Flash Park have this very simple system that you put a sign up saying don't park here unless we like you, and you pay them a certain amount of money for each sign. You hire it for a year, possibly £300 to £400. But then if someone does transgress, you can take a photo, they then process that against their ANPR system and charge a fine, they collect it, etc., etc. So the idea was it was a sort of simple way of us being able to police at least the Benford Road car park and moving vehicles on.
there's a cost involved, and the issue is this idea of permitted parking. It's a bit vague as to what that means. And when I've tried to clarify it, and they haven't really come back with a very specific answer. I've also found this other company, National Parking Control. Sounds exciting because it's national, it's control. So they have what seems a much better system with what they call a self-ticketing app. So you download it onto your phone, and you put their signs up, and they have guaranteed standards based around some parking authority letters I've forgotten. And they're up to their standard, and they say, I think it's authorised parking only. And in that case, their view is we could then have our own sign next to that, and say that we authorise people to park in marked bays, which seems pretty standard, and for up to a week at a time, or something vague like that. If we were to then to ask them to process a parking fine, we have to take a photo of the vehicle there for a week. We then have to have this grace period of another week, take another photo, and then they'll be able to process that as a fine. And given the vehicles that are there long term, I think that would meet our needs. The benefits of it might be that it's free, and more excitingly, if they issue a fine, we get a commission. £15.
How can we find?
Well, because we effectively give
What?
for parking illegally. It's mainly used for private property, and the Benefit
Right.
Road car park problem seems to be that while it's a public car park, it's not public land in that sense. We own it, which is why the
Yes.
police won't get involved moving this one particular car. So with the idea being, we want to move one particular car at the moment, but we don't know who owns it. This solution seems to be able to say, we get their signs, we put them up, in a week's time we take a photo of it, in another week's time we take another photo of it. They chase whoever the owner is, and something happens. It's not bulletproof, but it's great.
Max?
I very much like the idea, and as a rider, by the way, you know the car park's closed at the moment.
Yes.
There are 4 cars that have been left in there.
Well, there we are.
Our favourite Red Mini,
Yay.
and 3 others. They're leaving that aside. The only concern that I potentially have, and I'm sure you thought of it, Ian, is how do we know that they haven't moved the car between taking one photograph and then a week later taking another photograph, and they say, well, I didn't move it and I just came back again.
I think at the moment, what it feels, as a council here, we've been pretty toothless in this issue. We've put notices on the car, we've put plastic letters on the car. Some of them are still there. So I suppose we would have to say internally, we think that car's been there a while, we'll put a letter in it. In the windscreen, took a photo of the letter. A week later, the same dated letter is there.
So it's really about policing the extremists, if you see what I mean.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Okay, in which case I'm all.
And then if we like it,
Yeah.
we can then tweak what the authorisation rules are. We could move to a residence zone.
Sure.
Tighten the rules up even more. But given what we're trying to stop here, this seems like the simplest.
Yeah, I think starting with that, and then we can develop it as we move along. So
We
yes.
don't like it, we do. Now, they also have other technologies, ANPR cameras and Lord knows what else. And so we might find working with them is great, but we might find it's terrible. In which case, we have.
And it seems, as you say, a solution that potentially lends itself to other car parks as well.
I'm all for it, but I'm just wondering whether if we just rock up down with all these signs, we'll have a whole load of people. I'm just wondering whether it
how
should
we
be
communicate.
consulted and promote, put out first before we make that decision.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying we're going to do it tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
But I think because this has been running on for.
long time.
It's gone on for a very long time.
Yeah, we've got a month or so where we can contact local residents, car park
Yeah.
users, we can stick letters on their cars and say, this is what we're going to introduce, and have a copy of the authorised sign, which is maybe marked bays, we haven't got any of them, and maybe a week at a time.
Yeah, no, I think, I think most of the places you go to have got some, they've either got paid car parks, but we've decided we're not doing that, but they have some way of
At the
monitoring.
moment, that particular vehicle isn't breaking any regulations.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So it seems that we have to put, and even if it's the thinnest end of the regulatory winch, just a week's time. If you live there and move your cars to work every time, well, that's fine, we're not even going to want it this year. So it seemed a sensible step to maybe solve the problem.
Yeah.
So which one are you looking at, the self-ticketing app?
Yeah,
NPC. So are you approving that tonight?
that's that. I've recommended in this paper that we try to install those signs. Yeah,
So you proposing that?
I'm proposing that.
Happy to second it.
That's going to take it.
I'll vote for it as well. I just wonder whether it shouldn't go to the full council. It's fairly radical.
Well, yeah, that was just one thing that I was thinking
That's
of,
fine.
because it's a drastic change,
Yes.
because it's something we've never done.
Justify it to
But there's no wrong. I mean, that gives us time to communicate. That gives
Yeah.
us time to order the signs.
And I don't think that,
There's no rush.
yeah, but I don't think there's going to be a different scenario to what
So
you've just
maybe
agreed
we're
now.
proposing The
The recommendation to full council, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll propose we recommend it and send it. to the council.
I have to say, I was tackled by a parishioner today even about what was the difference between our owning the car park and the public. Because in a way, we are, the council are the public.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it was, we'll have all these sorts of arguments coming at us.
The answer is we don't have any power to
And
enforce.
then, I mean, the council's on the same side as me, actually, but putting that point that
it's not going to be a time restriction for people, is it, or is it?
it
Well,
probably should be.
We'd have to put a time restriction on it, but that's why I thought a week was pretty broad.
Mm.
And then we could, it's effectively 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
That no one's going to move their car once. And nearly everyone
But if
does.
somebody was on 2 weeks or 3 weeks holiday,
Then we would have to have a thing, if this is a problem, contact us.
Yeah.
And we'll record that that car doesn't get fined.
yeah, so I think that's probably why it's got to be out.
The idea is it's
Yeah,
as light touch as possible, but it's better than nothing,
better than nothing.
Yeah.
which is what we have at the moment.
Yes.
Love it, thank you.
Nice. Has the drain been installed?
Yes, it has, yes.
Good.
And when I drove past last night, although it was dark, I was convinced it was in then. But when I came in for this meeting, it's definitely in. So I would say either tomorrow or the next day, it's going to be dry, I would have thought, and then the car park will be open again.
That's great. Good. That's very good. Okay. Public toilets. Automatic hand washer cleaner in the gents' toilet. Decide next steps.
Have you seen pictures
See
of
some
it?
photos.
Yeah. It's that's the unit.
Yeah.
At least and I did have a conversation about this because they are very expensive to replace, but we wondered whether just replacing the drawer, because they're pretty old anyway, as I said, and looking at all the gunk and
That's a
horrible,
lot of going.
whether it's worth replacing the whole thing rather than just a drawer.
So the whole thing, there's one quote for 2,966 here. £20,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the draw parts are,
How many quotes have we got?
We only have this Wallgate one, but it's very difficult to find others.
it's there,
Yeah.
on the machine. So the draw's £1,144.
Mhm.
It needs to be done. I mean, I don't see what the other options are.
No.
I suppose the only option I raised on an email was whether there was, do the small fix, the £1,000
Yeah.
fix, and look to replace it with a hand basin and hand dryer in the future, which would
cheaper than £3,000. But whether the plumbing, I don't know if
I
that's
don't
technically
know, I
possible.
don't know, yeah.
Because it's been problematic for a while, hasn't it?
What's the, what's in the budget for the toilets? Do you know, of course?
It was pretty chunky last year, wasn't it? We underspent it, because we had lots of money to make it pretty.
I don't think it's huge. I don't think it's-
£7,875.
Which budget does it come out of?
The St Osiris Lane Public Convenience
R&M,
which according to this in December, we spent 686, we had a
Yeah.
budget of 787.
Okay,
So we got
okay,
money
that makes me
to
feel,
do it.
that makes me feel.
so you've got the money there, you've got the money there to replace it, the whole unit.
My gut feeling would be to go with just the drawer, but if it's that nasty in the drawer, it's going to be that nasty everywhere else, isn't it? How long, it's been in there since day one, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean that, and
So
I don't
it's
even
years.
know how old they are because they were owned by ENC before we
So
had it.
maybe there's no argument to say we bite the bullet now, start again, and in 10 years' time, put something in.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk about refurbishment. We've had all sorts of quotes, haven't we?
Yeah, and we got away with just painting it.
Yeah,
And it looks fine, it's a.
Yeah,
We've improved theirs. That's it. Toilet walls.
I mean, if you were thinking about like replacing with a different type of sink, I would suggest you take both the units out and you have new sink.
There's a big hole in the wall, isn't there? I mean, there's-
Yeah,
Unit.
I know. I don't know whether that would be a cheaper option.
Probably in the long run, but
Mm,
not immediately. I'm going to find something to do it.
yeah.
This is done and dusted, isn't it?
I'm gonna propose that we go with this quote, the whole thing.
Recommend it for full council because I don't think you can't.
Oh,
put
yes,
it
I
in.
got budget in there, yeah. Yes.
I would begrudgingly second that, I think.
Right. Other properties and open spaces. Discuss approaching Angling Water, yes, for help in relation to a new pathway across the wreck.
So it's-
From New Road, yeah, through to the children's play area. Now, I like this idea, and I like the Cambridge path.
Parker's Beach, that.
Yes, yes.
So it's something I suggested after a conversation with a resident standing there. And you can't really see it on this photo, but if you stand in the wreck at 8:30 every morning, there's about 30 children going that way to the primary school, there's about 50 children come this way to Prince William, and they all walk on the grass. And I think I mentioned it at the annual town meeting, and someone said, oh, it's not worth spending money on just to stop people's shoes getting wet. But it's well used. We know residents on that side of the road walk to and from town,
Yeah.
people cycle, they push prams. And we were given a quote last year for 18,000 to tarmac it, which seemed a lot of money. Now that Anglia Water have killed the grass and dug a big hole over at least half of it, and they have a digger sitting there all the time, I was just wondering whether now's the time when they're finishing in April to strike and say, any chance you could leave that section not dug in and then dig a little bit out there and then fill it with, I was originally thinking a gravel path, but there's all sorts of issues with wheelchairs and lawn mowing and stuff. And this grid stuff that they've got going across Parker's Piece by the side of the main roads to allow cycles and bikes and stuff, it's sort of permanent enough. That's sort of a footage of what you have to do to put grass coming through it. You basically put some hardcore down under it and then a membrane, and then a bit more stuff, and then the fabric, and then soil and grass. So it would blend in. But then I thought the other benefit is you can have two parallel strips side by side. When we use it for parking for the Christmas fair, for example, vehicles will be able to drive on it much more readily than they can at the moment on the grass. it's just an opportunity because Anglia Water are in there at the moment. They've done half the job. They might even have some hardcore left over, but they've got a digger in there at the moment. So I thought it might be worth asking and seeing if we can get it done. Otherwise, they're going to spend a lot of time with a digger covering where they've had the big concrete plates to make it back to grass again. So that's my thinking.
That,
Does it go across the part of the field that is played with by large ball games?
No, not at all. The path that comes down here from King's Road alongside the pocket path, I would imagine the logical thing would be just to continue that across. So it's a little bit of grass, and that also that would be a potentially nice area to have wildflowers or trees on one side of, and it's very clearly away from where the ball games live.
Right, because I would be implacably
Oh, no.
against
not at all, no,
impinging
yeah.
on
The ball games,
the ball game areas,
different area.
because it's all we've got. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the point, by having the plastic stuff, you can sort of play football over the top.
Yeah,
It doesn't
Yeah.
hinge on that at all.
Yeah.
So it's slightly more practical, gives us a car parking advantage,
Yeah.
and in water might not be nice.
and nice though wildflowers are, we have had tremendous problems in the past with any sort of growth down there, with drug sellers and people lurking in the bushes and such, which is
Yeah.
why we eventually cleared the last park that it was away. It was a park. Down behind where Pigpath is.
Right.
Plotters.
Do you know what the costs may be?
Because that stuff's about £6 a square metre, but I imagine the digging is probably one of the big costs. So if Anglia Water have done half of it for us already, then it should be less. But if they don't want to play ball, then we have to look at the entire thing.
So what's the proposal? First of all, talk to Anglia Water
That was my thinking.
and then get costs.
If they're willing to play ball,
Yeah, I was talking to Carl
Carl.
this week,
Yeah.
well, yesterday, because
who is Carl?
Project.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
I was trying to find a person in Anglian Water to send the Ashton Road letter to. Anyway, he's gonna find somebody that can I can forward that to. I don't mind having a word because I've spoken to him quite a few times and talked to him about it. And he might say, yeah, that's fine. I'm sure we could do something, and I'm hoping that he will. The only other thing is he might say, we did give you £6,000.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
But part
for
of
being there.
part of the lease agreement is they've
They've got to put it
back.
right.
So
Yeah.
while they're in there with their digger and their team, it might even be easier for them to leave some of it
Mm,
for us to put the park in. So I thought having a conversation with them would
yeah.
be the starting point.
Okay. I think the next thing is Fleck Field. So it says on the agenda, OTC agreement with Fleck Field Association for the management of Fleck Field. Platform Parish Council have a similar agreement with their Playing Field Association. Received progress report on discussions with Fleck Field Association. Well, I do not. I'll hand over to Max.
Okay.
Good.
There was an action for me to have a meeting with representatives from the Fleckfield Association with one other councillor, and in fact, Jamie joined me and three members of the Fleckfield Association, one of which was also a councillor, Jerry Hutton, who of course wears two hats. And I'll come on to Jerry later on because he made some very interesting observations. So it was a very positive, I think, and constructive meeting. We started pretty much by tabling the agreements that template agreement that had been given to us by Councillor Chappell. And without much discussion, that was pretty much kicked into touch. The reasons for that is that Flettonfield Association, because of the way they are essentially constituted, do not have the ability to actually enter into any legal agreement with anybody. And also they cannot have public liability. Essentially, they're not a legal entity. They have a constitution, they have a bank account, they have all of those things, but from a constitutional point of view, they're effectively a club, which actually doesn't allow them to enter into legal agreements and doesn't allow them to hold public liability. And they made it very clear they don't wish to change their legal status. So the kind of agreement that David was suggesting with Blackthorn Field, whatever it is up there, that's simply not applicable because
No,
they
I knew
couldn't
that,
sign
yeah.
up to it. So I said I'd come back to Councillor Hutton, and he actually made, I think, two very telling observations in relation to this. One was that there are lots of other areas of activity around the town where the town council engage with volunteer associations, which is effectively what Flettonfield Association is, you know, such as Bloom Garnwell, for example, was one of the examples that he gave. You could talk about the Yarn Bombers as being another. And the other, I think, positive observation that he made was that it's possibly not even actually in OTC's interest to have a formal legal agreement with FFA, because there's no guarantee about the future of that organisation. To a certain extent, the organisation was pretty much set up in order to save Flettonfield. Flettonfield has been saved, and as such, their volunteer base may very quickly evaporate, if you see what I mean. So it would be problematic for us if we were to hand over pretty much the management and the upkeep of Flettonfield to an organisation whose own future is not guaranteed. So where does that leave us? Essentially, they clearly want to work together with OCT, and I think we should very much encourage that. And I asked them retrospectively to produce a kind of list of what areas of activity that they can involve themselves in. And clearly, they want to marshal their volunteers in order to try and fulfill the kind of plan or vision document, whatever we want to call it, that they have for Flettonfield. So the question is really how we move forward. We're not going to have a legal agreement. It seems to me that, given the discussion, the best way forward is to have some kind of memorandum of understanding, which just simply states where we would wish to use their organisational powers to bring volunteers together in order to make things happen at Flettonfield. But it won't be underpinned by a legal agreement of any sort because they can't enter into a legal agreement. So it's essentially finding ways in which we work with what is a very active, enthusiastic group of volunteers. Is that the right?
I'd say that's very, very fair, yeah, very accurate, yeah.
One of the things that Flettonfield Association have often referred to as their sort of plan, their diagram of how things are going.
Which they have obviously on the website.
Absolutely. If, say, for example, there was an agreement and a memorandum of understanding was suitably vague, if the council then said we don't want a soft play area or fruit bushes here, there, or anywhere else, would that cause
Well,
consternation or?
I think the next step is actually to revisit exactly that plan. So that both sides know what they're kind of signing up to. I think they've done a great job producing that plan. Again, my personal view, and it's obviously for full council, us to make recommendations to full council, is that OTC now have to own that plan. So I think what we should do is take that plan. I'm quite sure that we'll accept the majority of what's there. It's a very well thought out plan. It's a plan that's been developed through consultation processes and so on and so forth. So it would make no sense to us essentially to start that job all over again. So I think we should take it, but potentially identify within that priorities and also identify things which, for whatever reason, really can't be taken forward as part of that plan. And I say that there may be one or two things in that plan that realistically can't be taken forward. I know, for example, there's been concern about fire pits.
Well, yeah, I haven't had a conversation with our insurance company yet, but that was the one thing that I thought. And also, I think it was having a conversation with the insurance company when I was talking about there was a plan of where to put trees and things and having a quiet area. And I was, they said you need to be careful. I think it was a Rossborough inspector. You need to be careful with secluded, quiet areas because if you've got trees and bushes, it sounds nice, but then you've potentially got an area where something could happen to somebody and they can't be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially what I'm recommending to this group, and then we need to decide how we take it forward to the full council, is that, well, we first acknowledge that we can't have a legal agreement with the Burnfield Association, and secondly, we want to work closely with them as an active, enthusiastic group of volunteers. We have to take ownership of the plan and essentially make public, this is the plan from OTC, and then we essentially work with them in terms of prioritising it and moving it forward.
And then presumably in the memorandum there'd be we cut grass as an agreement.
So that's an interesting thing, I think, and it's something I've been thinking about because it's kind of my job in a way. And I was going to say I'm happy to, probably with Max maybe, go work with them on that.
Yeah.
Because I think working with volunteers, there are things that the volunteer actually doesn't really want to get involved with, because it takes away from that enjoyment of doing it.
And they've already produced a list which you can look at in relation to the plan of the things that they would wish to be involved in.
Yeah.
I haven't given it here because I think we're not quite ready at that stage yet, but they've already put thinking into that. So there's a very clear, set of, we would like to do X, Y, and Z. I think the only other thing that we need to be concerned about, and it's not a hurdle that we can't jump, and that is obviously with any group that relies on volunteers, it's the insurance that goes alongside that, and you must get this obviously in your work.
Risk assessing.
There are always solutions to this.
Yes,
we just need to make sure that those solutions are in place.
I'm happy to help out with that where I can.
I can also put a feel out to other clerks that because there are others that have groups and they have similar scenarios and just see what they do and how they get around it.
I mean, it must actually be quite a common thing when you think about it around the country, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, Springfield Gardens is a similar thing.
Do the schools still know it?
No,
Because
no, I think Fletton Field Association have been doing, because I think
They currently do it, FFA currently do it.
well, they have used to until fairly recently.
they've got a couple of mowers because Clive came in and asked if and when the workshop moves here, would there be any space to keep their two mowers? Because I think they're in somebody's garage, and it's not even in. I think it's a neighbour of
A neighbour of a friend's neighbour.
yeah, that's actually got them in their garage, so they can't really stay there forever.
But that, so I think some of this is detail that
Yeah.
needs to be ironed out later on. I think the proposal that we put to full council is that we move together on a memorandum of understanding basis, that we take ownership of the plan, and instead of doing, invite members of the FFA committee to work with us and finalise that plan, so it's jointly owned by both of us.
Yeah, that's really,
Sounds ideal.
really good. Yeah, so do you want to propose that? Yeah, that's really,
Sounds ideal.
really good. Yeah, so do you want to propose that?
Well, since I
Yeah, I
think I
suppose
just
so.
did propose
it.
Yeah, you did. I seconded it. Yeah, I suppose
I just
so.
did propose it.
Yeah, you did. I seconded it.
I'll vote for it.
Brilliant. Excellent. There we go.
Can we? Probably fairly anxious to hear what the outlook.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
And so that will go to the next full council in Feb.
That will go to the next full council,
And assuming it gets nod, then we start designising.
and then once it's gone to full council, then we can effectively set up a subgroup to agree the plan and work out timescales.
Which all depends on the field.
Yeah.
Coming up.
When is that due to?
I spoken to. I'm just trying to think. Did I put anything on the January agenda? No, I didn't. It was following the December agenda. I went back to our solicitor and signed all the agreement. He's now speaking with their solicitors. So, and they're looking at accesses at the moment because obviously there is an issue with the access.
Mm.
So
Okay.
that'll need to be ironed out.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Update on agreement and tree planting?
Depends, I've heard nothing back from my superb tree contact,
Okay.
so I presume he doesn't want to say yes or no, just avoids it.
Okay. War memorial and flagpoles. Yes. Flagpole heaven. Discuss maintenance report and so next steps. So,
This is the one that we just had done, isn't it? They condemns the flagpole as being unusable.
I mean, I think the one down by the War Memorial is okay. They've just said that we haven't got the thing, but we don't use it for that. So, but it's this one here. That's, we don't use it for that. So, but it's this one here. That's,
So this one is now condemned.
yeah,
We can never fly a flag on it ever again.
Which one?
the one
Car
here.
park.
Here.
Yeah,
It's not.
It's not got a-
bolt, and it's rusted,
Yeah.
and and so the question is, what do we do? Have they quoted for a replacement?
no, I don't. They've literally just done the
I was going to make a suggestion.
assessment.
yeah.
Is I seem to recall from the Queen dining, etc., that our flagpole is not a very public place.
No,
And I was wondering if getting a smaller flagpole over the door down here.
What front do you do?
I'm taking the front door behind you. Over the front door was a cheaper alternative that we could use and it's much more public. So would we look at a different solution rather than replacing the one there in the car park? But,
nobody looks at it.
Why do we need a flagpole?
Well, that's another question. I think
I'm guessing we're not obliged. Are we obliged?
No, you're not obliged to have a flagpole, but if you have got a flagpole, then you should be putting flags on it
Flags
and
on, yeah.
doing the proper thing. So if you haven't got a flagpole,
then
then you can't do that.
so is there a two-stage process here? We get rid of that one because it's condemned and take a watching
We
brief
could take
over
it
its
to a scrap
replacement.
metal.
I could take it back. We can put that on scrap metal. That'll get us quite a bit of money. 10 or 15 pounds.
Ladies on back.
Yeah, I mean, the only people I think that see it are me, if I look out my window.
Actually, had lines on
Or if I've actually been out there,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knows it's there.
So it's condemned, we have to get rid of it.
Mm,
And
right.
we look to an alternative if we feel the need.
What flags do we actually have to fly on such a flag?
We have a Union Jack.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the King's birthday, basically.
But no one sees it.
Is it really worth
Well,
the effort? Putting a Union Jack up once a year?
that's why we
We've
look at,
done
the-
other things, there are other
we look at the second
things to
stage
do with
beyond,
the,
we revisit.
I think it's probably better to put lots of very nice bunting into the town.
Yeah.
Very few
I mean, we
people
may have, I
see
mean,
it.
I can't remember us having another flag. Like, we didn't purchase a Ukrainian flag when lots of people,
No.
yeah.
No.
I've only known there to be a Union Jack on it. So,
Okay.
so we just get rid of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, get rid of the flagpole
And be
I'm
prepared.
not being
to-
unpatriotic, it's just that
and review.
I am.
for
Review
the
usage.
amount of time it's
So in a year's
taken
time,
to
we
set
need, we, yeah. So, yeah.
Do we need to agree on that? Do we need to vote on that? Get rid of it? Trees. Trees. No issues to report.
That's what it says.
Okay. That was easy. St. Peter's Church. Flagstones and pointing are an ongoing thing, aren't they? Yeah, so no.
Yeah, we've got an update on the flags. in the church.
I haven't got anything here.
They go over them every day and they're getting worse, I think, so. Literally just been a line. around
Well, hang
the
on,
side.
there's what does it say here? Please email, Wormstow. Oh no, is that for the wall?
That's for the wall.
Yeah,
I think last meeting, it was, Norby was going to try and get a line down there. So what we want, it's about a third of the way down the
cemetery. Discuss capacity of new cleared area. That's good. And decide upon number existing. Decide next steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went down to the cemetery and took the photo of the new cleared area,
Oh, wow.
which is quite substantial.
Yeah.
At a rough count, looking at the roads that are leading up to it. So it's in this section, it's basically up here. So in theory, I think you'd probably get AA to LL in most of the way, and then potentially 3 to 4, maybe 5 more rows towards the fence line. So I was just asking the question, how are we going to allocate it? How are we going to do it? And then there's a bit here where there's sort of a bit of a cliff edge. I think Lisa's told them to leave that farmed and develop or whatever. So that was my first question. And then the second question, which I stuck on the same email, was signage. And it's something that we talked about for a while.
Yeah.
When you look at that, it looks relatively straightforward, how you find your way around the church, the cemetery, sorry. But when you get there, there's no reference points on the map for where the junctions are. And there's no clear divide between, for example, row 47 and 46, etc. And if you look at the map that James did here, it's much less clear. So,
Yeah.
given we want to avoid problems with allocations in the future, etc. So I pinged an email around to the people who are cemetery wardens, as it were, and talked about some sort of recycled plastic finger posts, as it's called, in 1 or 2 key locations, pointing out this zone was something to think about. And someone also suggested these, which are called caravan pitch sites. indicators, they're just little plastic things you bang in the ground.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you have a number on it, something, to indicate row A, row F, row something, and work the middle bit out.
Should be.
I didn't really come to a conclusion on that, but I thought it was worth now's the time to consider it, because not only have we got this extra chunk of land, but given the decision of the planning committee last week to go ahead with the housing commission behind it, in theory, we're going to get the extension at this end as
We're
well.
getting the one we wanted, aren't we? Oh no, this is the bit we've cleared.
This is a bit we've cleared, and I think
About
the
the fair
plan
play.
still had that bit down there, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, they were offering a side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words, at some point we'll have to extend the NAP this way. So I thought it was a good time to review. I haven't got the solutions. I suppose Lisa's the person.
Lisa's been thinking about it. I think we've been sort of discussing numbering and
Yeah.
things. And I think as well, we also discussed, because obviously it was agreed to not allow people to reserve plots. My view is that I know we've got this extra plot, extra piece, but I still think we possibly should stick with that.
We estimated, didn't we, 2 years ago, that this would give us 4 to 5 years breathing space. Judging by the way in which they're building down there, extension comes on stream, which might give us another 5 years.
Mm.
So that the better we eke it out, the better.
Yeah, because I think, you might get people coming. I mean, what we did say was if somebody died and they were elderly and they've got an elderly relative that maybe wanted to go next to them, then possibly you could allow that. But if you get people just coming and wanting to reserve 4 plots in a row for their whole family, you could end up, you've got nobody buried in there
Given away.
and you've given away
Yeah.
all your plots. So,
I thought that Max and Ian might like to, because they're always desperate to redesign the car parks, might like to get a tape measure out and plot it all out into neat little rows.
Sounds like a fun way of spending your
Then you
life.
could have such fun.
I think we probably need Lisa there.
yeah, Lisa's already on that. Yeah,
Because also, we know what the digital mapping
Yeah.
is, so that will probably be able to estimate how much we can do in
Yeah.
this market.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's a push a button on the computer, isn't it?
And make sure that the map tallies up with what we've got.
Yes,
Yeah.
as you were saying, it's missing.
We may not be able to decide anything tonight, but I thought the idea of how we delineate these zones, and even if it's just a couple of those, just pointing roughly in the right
Yeah.
direction,
Yeah.
that might be reasonable. But no idea how much they cost yet. But we've got a couple of grand for the
So what do you want it to
budget.
say on each finger?
Well, for example, all of these, if you had, there's like a natural breakpoint here where the cremated remains are.
Right,
According
yeah,
to Co-op Funeral Care at the moment, 80% of interments are cremation.
yeah.
So actually, the idea of wooded burials up here or in this area might be something we need to look at more in the future. But if you had, say, a finger post here saying that this section was AA to LL,
Oh, I take your
something,
point, yeah.
that, and then this is,
And it would look
further.
nice, actually.
and then up here there's some seats in that area,
Yeah,
and
that
that
would
can
look
point to
nice.
that and that. You might just go with 2 signs,
Yeah.
just giving you a bit of direction, which
Yeah.
we don't have.
Absolutely.
So really, I was going to say, is it okay for me to go back to these guys and get some quotes next month?
Max?
Yeah, I know this isn't a very popular view, but I would stress it nonetheless. First of all, I think I'm not convinced that I agree, although I haven't seen on what basis it's calculated, this notion that, oh, well, we've got enough capacity for 40, 45 years. Partly
I
because,
said 4 to 5.
I was going to say 4 to 5.
Based on the number of burials we've had in the last
4
20 years.
stroke 5.
Okay, 4 or 5, yeah.
Okay, I was going to
I think it
say,
was 4.5.
that's a bit more realistic. But even then, I'm not entirely sure I agree, because the population of the town is growing and growing and growing, you know, and it's going to be growing more with exactly the development's going to go next door. and so on and so
I
forth.
wasn't saying we're safe. I was saying, when we first reported it last summer, I was saying we need to find a solution, which is why we cleared the top area.
It also partly goes back to the Clark's point in that I worry that we're potentially going to reach capacity very quickly. And capacity is actually with space that's not being used for various reasons. An expectation that they're going to fit a lot of 5, and actually in reality they're not, because people move away and all sorts of things happen. I guess what I'm leading up to is, you know, at some stage, I think we've got to really, you know, grasp the nettle and say, how much longer can people be buried there, as opposed to having their remains, cremated remains, put there?
What, 5 or 10 years, probably, realistically. I think one of the ideas last year is that we look at seeing if there's more land in town we might want to look to make cemetery. I don't think there is, but we might want to review that. But there is a finite amount of space, and I suppose we're talking about it now.
Mm.
It's in the public record.
But I just think that, you know, that day will come sooner than we think.
You know, it's not a statutory requirement that you
No,
provide a
absolutely,
centre.
Yes.
I was going to just going to ask that.
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's not, we don't have it.
Don't have to, yeah, if you don't have one.
In which case, we might say that.
Can you be buried anywhere? In,
You can be buried in your garden.
Yeah,
Make selling a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite anywhere, but you can be very.
if you're like, oh, I really like that church in, you know.
Oh, no, it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Well, anyway, so yes, there are restrictions. You can't dig up a hole in the middle of the road or anything like that. And for example, St. Peter's now is closed, so you can't be buried there.
You can have cremated remains there, though.
I just think at some stage we've got to have a much clearer policy, and I think at some stage we've got to say, no, we can't have full body burials anymore.
So when you say much clearer policy, as in we will stop putting full body burials in there in 5 years, in 10 years, or when space runs out?
I would go for 5 years. And then you can maintain it longer term, by which I mean the next 100 years, but allow people to have their ashes buried there.
I mean, you could, if we did get that new bit, you say that is just cremation.
Yeah, absolutely. But that means that this extension is it. And the only reason we did this was breathing space so that we could make these decisions.
Yeah.
That's it. It was cheap.
But to also have, garden of remembrance and what have you, we could use that extra space, I think, in a more constructive way.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. But again, I think if we that's okay.
It's a very emotional and emotive, set of issues that we're grappling with. But
Yeah.
I do think we need to grasp the nettle at some stage.
So agenda-wise, we've covered quite. Discuss tree planting, wildflower planting options. I mean, it's not really.
No, I think I just raised that because of that large area of land. I suppose until we've laid out the other area, I think it's something we probably need to keep coming back to over the next few months. And Max has basically spoken. The important but unspoken end point is that this gives us breathing space, and then at some point we need to know what we're going to do.
Are we looking at the one consider reservations? Are we saying that we're not going to take reservations?
I think that's reasonable.
I
Do we
think
need to
I
formally vote on that?
would no. I can just put it was agreed that we would continue to not take reservations on burial plots.
I think that's fair, and I think the fact is we need to consider how we use the extension that we're going to get at some point, and whether we continue to use it for full body burials. That seems, which effectively makes this extension we have here the last, could be,
Yeah.
the last bit of the present
No, I think it
cemetery,
would be.
which aligns with what's there at the moment. It's sort of a natural place, and then the promotion, and that could well be a good step forward. Maybe that's not working on.
Okay. Discuss request from the owner of the cemetery chapel for improvements to the access driveway into Starling Steps. It's got flooding or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's just steadily got worse and worse, and all the gravel seems to have disappeared, and there are holes in it now. And obviously they've been filling with water, and it's all been running.
The only question I had on this is, have we had sight recently of the lease, the sales, purchase, whatever? There must have been an agreement with the chapel.
There was, yes, and it's in, oh, sorry, I didn't know if I thought you perhaps had a copy of it. No, it says on the transfer, land registry transfer, that, we'll find it in a minute. The transferee hereby covenants with the transferor to pay the transferor a fair proportion of the cost of maintaining, repairing, renewing and upgrading the access. So
So which one?
we're the transferor.
And so we're going
Hang on a
to,
minute, no, I had to Google, I didn't listen. I had to actually Google that. I'm sure they've got to pay us. Yeah. Pay a contribution, so it's not just down to us to just completely redo it.
because quite simply, a hearse might come in and use it, someone might park there to go and visit a relative. So there's lots of uses for someone which we're responsible for.
And they use it daily, so yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it's, I think something's got to be done with it, but it will be a conversation to be had with the residents.
Yeah. The only other thing I was going to say is there's no point putting more stuff down if it's just going to wash away again. I spent many years with our trackers company doing that, and it doesn't work. You always lose. So presumably, given we just had a drain put in, Benefit Road cut, I'd imagine we need to at some point look at putting a drain or two drains, even just a gully
Put something in there. Mhm.
somewhere in the drive. So to get costs and stuff is going to take a
Yeah.
while, but I thought that's a sensible way, so at least we know what we're talking about. And so the water doesn't run down the drive, and we keep filling it and it runs away. Because that'll keep happening.
Okay, next, Joe Strong. There isn't really anything there. Markets. Traders are still in discussion with Armscor, is that right, regarding electricity usage?
Sorry, I was just still typing a bit. Sorry, where are we?
Markets.
Right.
This is getting their electricity from that school building.
Oh yeah. I
Changed.
have heard unofficially that the trader's considering getting a generator.
I heard this week that this week's his last week of the month.
Oh, there's okay.
So, who knows?
It's not really an issue for us, it's
No.
really between them and the school.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a resident call me because she was upset that he was going, and I did explain the situation because it's not our electricity supply, and it's up to the school. It's not something that we've ever thought of putting in,
That's
and we have offered, well, not offered, but said, what about getting a generator?
Which trader is it, do you much interest?
Cheese, man,
Which one?
cheese.
Jeez.
So it's quite popular. I mean,
Yeah, I had it proposed by a resident only yesterday, so it wasn't time to hit this. I was going to put out there in any other business, but while we're here, whether we could suggest to the school that we and they came to an agreement
about a small private meter, so they could charge it. I'm not sure that would solve it, but that's what I was asking.
But these days, generators are reasonably small, portable things, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Well,
You
I
know,
mean,
so
the
if
watchman,
he
he's
really
got
wanted to solve
Yeah.
the problem, he could by getting a
Yeah,
generator.
precisely. I kind of almost don't see what the problem is.
I can't.
Right, let's move on. Town events, Christmas market, well, as we know. So approve further light extension. The locations are Greenmount Antiques, between Greenmount Antiques and the Catholic Church. We had 2 last year, we're having 2 this year, that's the, I think, comment. So anybody, any concern on this?
Again, what's the cost of,
They are, there is a,
I missed it, was there a document?
There was-
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't see it.
It's about, it's that one,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get there eventually.
1390. The only thing I was going to say is the lights look lovely
Yeah,
this
I've
year,
seen it now.
but the angels, which look nice on the pictures, when they were doing that down the street, because the building was right next to the light,
Can't do it.
they went on sideways. So they just got that very small lights until you looked up at them at the right angle and then went on. So I was just wondering whether we could get motifs that I don't know, came out from the lamp pole into the street more.
Oh, so is it lampposts they come from?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, it's not banging more holes into the stone.
No, and that's why we had to move the motifs down there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we had a choice of motifs, but one that stood out into the street more visibly would be more Christmassy.
Do you have a suggestion?
I did there were some little shooting stars I found on the website.
I was joking, but.
Oh,
Okay.
No, I was-
Genuinely, I can't believe.
I had some time yesterday
That's-
last night, so I decided looking at motifs instead.
Such interesting.
That's a good way of avoiding.
Um,
I can ask Lisa to look into that.
okay.